schedule, except they finished in third place in the division. They will be making a decision, as we said earlier in the show, about what to do with Mike McCarthy. I continue to predict it'll happen during the Eagles-Packers playoff game on Sunday. But, as we also said, other teams are interested. The Bears want to talk to Mike McCarthy. And this doesn't surprise me. You know, John Gruden's name started to bubble up last week. And I looked at his record, 117 and 112 in the regular season as a head coach. Lower winning percentage by a thousandth of a percentage point, but still lower winning percentage than Jeff Fisher. And 117 and 112 for him. 174 and 111 for Mike McCarthy. You know, somebody reached out to me, and Chris and I were talking about this yesterday. I was talking about this to somebody, and I can't remember where or when. The idea that Mike McCarthy's perpetually on the hot seat and John Harbaugh never gets mentioned, and their career accomplishments and their record is almost identical. And maybe it's because one's the coach of the Cowboys and one isn't. But McCarthy has proven he can do it. Now, he hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2010, but Aaron Rodgers hadn't either, and he found a job with the Jets 2 years ago. So I could see some of these other teams thinking McCarthy is what we need at this time. I don't know that he's what the Bears need. Maybe he's what the Saints need. Maybe he's what the Jets need. I don't know. But I think he might have options. I think there might be teams interested, and they're going to be fans like, we don't want him. Take a step back and look at what he's done. Separate the fact that he's been part of the Dallas soap opera for the last 5 years, and that you feel like you know him better than you do, or you otherwise would. Maybe you feel like you know him better than you know you coach your own team, because every time you turn on TV, there's Mike McCarthy. And every time you turn on ESPN or FS1, there's a debate about whether or not Mike McCarthy should be fired. He still can get the job done. And I think it's smart for teams to at least bring him in and talk to him and see what he could do for them.
And it's very unique because you have these coaches. I even think of Andy Reid when he was in Philadelphia there's a lot of success. It's a lot of winning, but ultimately like the team moves on because like he's not winning the big game. He's not getting us the amount of Super Bowls we think we should have. And you think about Mike McCarthy on the Green Bay Packers and how much winning they were doing year in and year out, going out there with Aaron Rodgers and just winning games. And then ultimately they're like, well, we only have one Super Bowl. That's not good enough. And I think sometimes when those guys get other opportunities or they find the right situation, the perfect situation, you see what you see in Kansas City with Andy Reid. You see these teams that now take off because it was never a doubt. Like the guy's always been a good head coach. And I look at the Chicago Bears you were in that division. You played against Mike McCarthy. You've had to coach against him or ownership. You've had to see him year in and year out on the Green Bay Packers win games. I would imagine for them, you love Mike McCarthy. Like you love what it looks like because you've been on the short end of that stick so many times. So I would imagine there's real interest in having him in there, seeing what he thought. He knows the Chicago Bears and what he faced year in and year out and understanding what they look like from an organizational standpoint going forward. Now, there's a lot of different things with Warren and polls that are already in place there with him leaving the Cowboys. I don't know exactly what kind of ownership front office, I don't know what he would want it to look like. If I'm him, you kind of want to get in the right situation that you think you could be the most successful in. You've been on two different teams as a head coach now. Like I think Mike McCarthy probably knows exactly what he wants going forward and what that looks like. But for him, and I said it last week, I just think he's in such a unique position of, hey, from a play, like I think about it as a player, like, hey, I'm one of the top free agents. Like I know what it looks like. I know what I want to do. I've had this long career of being successful. Like I'm going to pick and choose what I think the best looking team and organization is. And I'm going to go to the dance with them. And I'm going to go and hope that I can be there until I call it quits and retire, because he's had a lot of success. And it's so funny because narratives in this industry seem to find different guys and it just sticks with them no matter what, even though when you kind of take a step back and look at records and look at their accomplishments, they've done far more what people give them credit for. And I think McCarthy has fallen into that kind of situation. So I'm wondering how this works out for him. If I'm him, I'm taking my time. I'm figuring out what I want to do and not worrying about as much of what the Cowboys want to do or what Jerry does. I'm gonna go and find out what Chicago looks like, what Caleb Williams is like. Maybe that's where I need to be going forward. Or like you said, the Saints or some other team. I think Mike McCarthy is going to be a hot guy in this thing. When you look at Ben Johnson, Vrabel, Brian Flores, who really is the next guy? Is it Aaron Glenn, or is it a guy like Mike McCarthy as a free agent, the coach that every other team wants?
I thought of something early on, and I hadn't connected the dots, even though we've talked about the team already this program. The Jaguars could be the place because Mike McCarthy might not have any options. If he wants to keep coaching, he'll just have – he dealt with Jerry Jones for 5 years as the owner and general manager. Maybe after dealing with Jerry for 5 years, Trent Baalke is a breath of fresh air. And there was 1 year of overlap in their careers because, coaches and executives, they move around from place to place. 2005, Trent Baalke was a scout in San Francisco, and Mike McCarthy was the offensive coordinator that year. The year they didn't draft Aaron Rodgers, and they drafted Alex Smith instead. So they at least worked together for a year. Now, that might mean they hate each other and never want to work together again. We have this weird rule of thumb that, they worked together once. They want to work together again. No, think of the people you've worked with in the past or are currently working with. The way Devin feels about me. If at some point down the road there's a chance to work together again, it's going to be like, are you friggin' crazy? No, not that asshole. Sorry, London. So, but wouldn't that make sense? Because you think about it. 12-5, 12-5, 12-5. Failure, failure, failure. You go to Jacksonville, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5. Parade, parade, parade.
That's so true. And depending on how he feels about Trevor Lawrence, we talk about you got to have a quarterback. Maybe he looks at Trevor Lawrence and says, hey, if I get my hands on him, I think we could easily win 11, 12 games with that guy in this division. So that could definitely be something. And I think the first part of what you said of being in a situation and going through what you go through makes the next situation either look really attractive, not so bad, or I want to stay away. And when you're with the Cowboys and Jerry Jones and every single game, every single year, it's just like this huge boulder on your back of he's coming down, he's doing these media scrums, and now I got to answer this question. Going to Jacksonville and getting a house off the water and it being all of these different things of knowing that, hey, this is just going to be where I can go and coach football. That might definitely be a breath of fresh air for him. And he could easily go and say, I'll go down to Jacksonville. I can go make Jacksonville my kingdom. We can go down there. What if we go to an AFC championship 1 year? What if we are in a divisional round and we're hosting a divisional round? What if those things happen because we're a 2 seed in the playoffs? I'll be good down here forever. So I do think, and I think once you've coached for a while, you do look at more, you look at different things and you look at more of the situation, not just the football team and the X's and O's. You look at everything else of how can I have longevity here and not have to get up and move and not have to go in and tell my staff, hey, I'm sorry, I failed you guys, we're all fired. How do you avoid those situations? And maybe Mike McCarthy does kind of look at that and say, I'm not going to coach the New York Jets. I don't want to be back in that circus and having to deal with that. I don't want to do that anymore. I've done that. I did that in Green Bay where winning wasn't enough. I did that in Dallas where winning in a regular, I want to go and just coach football. And if we win, we're good. And I don't have to worry about anything else.
You laughed a little too hard when I made my crack earlier about you not wanting
You said it, not me.
But you laughed. You laughed. It wasn't quite that funny, Devin. Let's take a break.
When you're 4,000, I'm still going to work with you. 4,000 years old.
I still need another 1,000 to be a billionaire. So I'll have a hell of a lot of fun on that yacht, though, if I can just make it to 5,000. It's not funny in Miami right now. Tyreek Hill wants out, and he's done something else to make his views on remaining with the Dolphins clear. We'll give you the latest on where things stand and where they may go.